So this will be the final presentation, and after that, whoever wants can ask questions and do the Q&A thing if there are any questions. If any questions pop up. Okay. Thank you. So your last but not least.
Indeed. I'll open this now. That is ready. Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Where is it?
You can go down.
Thank you. Last but by no means least, as we said. Okay, I'm Peter Hall. If you haven't met me already, I'm representing an organisation called CSV from the UK. I'm going to talk to you about the establishment of CSV very briefly, where my project stands with CSV, how we became established. I think it's important that you understand the process of how we've got to where we are today in Preston. So just bear with me about the history bit, okay? And then I will sort of talk about a project that is currently ongoing, and then where we want to be in the future. Okay, so first of all, the history of CSV and how we came about. Our vision, CSV's vision, is of a society where everyone can participate to build strong and inclusive communities. Our mission is to enable people to take an active role in their communities. Quite straightforward. Volunteering with CSV enables people of all ages, nationally, and backgrounds to reap the benefits of putting something back. Our programs help empower disabled people to lead independent lives, offer security and stability to families and children and at risk of neglect, help young people find their direction in life, and enable older people to share knowledge and experience across generations. That is a national picture of what CSV does across the UK. I am part of a branch of CSV that is called CSV Learning. Okay, we specifically, at the Preston project of CSV Learning, work specifically with 14 to 19-year-old disaffected and disenfranchised young people. Through our learning and training facilities, thousands of young people and adults develop new skills, build their confidence and improve their job prospects. CSV, in partnership with organisations across the UK and Europe, we help people come together to build stronger communities, better services and more fulfilling lives. Okay. Going back to 1962, as you can see from the badge, this year is our 50th anniversary, so therefore I feel obliged to talk about the establishment of CSV, if you don't mind. So, we were established in 1962 by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Alec Dixon. He established a project called Volunteer Service Overseas, probably one of the first volunteer services that dealt across Europe and internationally. This developed pace and a lot of fame in the UK. Apparently, obviously I'm not old enough to remember this, by the way. This is 1962, I wasn't born then. Okay. This was recognised and people started, so why aren't we doing this in the UK? All right, there were sort of smaller voluntary groups established, so therefore CSV was established. The aim was to give volunteering opportunities to younger people, defined back then in 1962, a young person was aged between 16 and 35. Okay, maybe still now. To work face-to-face with people in need. Initially, Community Service Volunteers was an organisation devoted solely to recruiting and placing volunteers in the community where they were needed. Okay, so yes, it is our 50th anniversary, There's a huge celebration going to be taking place later this year. It's been recognised by the current government, which is nice. So we've been invited to Buckingham Palace to celebrate this. There's a special party taking place for CSV down there. For 50 years, CSV has been committed to helping people make a difference. Over 3 million people have volunteered with CSV over the years to build safer, stronger, more inclusive communities and engage in social action. Currently in the UK, we have 22 projects in Scotland, 22 projects in Wales, 172 projects in England, and just currently 1 in Northern Ireland. So, CSV Learning Preston, bringing it back local now to my involvement. We are, obviously, Preston is based in the northwest of England. As I mentioned, we work with 14 to 19-year-olds that are disaffected, disenfranchised, and fallen out of education. We term these young people as NEET, and not in employment, education, nor training. To engage these young people, we specialise in digital media production, which essentially is work-based learning. We have a centre. May I take a step backwards, actually? I want to sort of try, I think it's important again to establish how we became to be a digital media centre for disaffected youth. Okay, back in the 1980s, there was a TV station, a regional TV station in the UK. It was called Granada Television, and in partnership with CSV at the time was recognised in the region as being the predominant leader in volunteer and youth engagement, volunteer projects and youth engagement, I should say. So Granada Television approached CSV locally and asked them to front a campaign that went out on television regionally to promote community project work and try and enthuse local community projects to recruit and expand their work. So they invested in a clamped out double-decker bus. We recruited a film crew and they went out across the northwest region filming local community projects, and then these short programs will be published on TV to promote those local projects. So that was our initial engagement in media. We progressed from that onto commercial radio stations across the northwest of England. Okay, there's a company called EMAP. They owned several commercial radio stations across the northwest, and we produced what's called, or we termed as, social action broadcasting campaigns. That involved volunteers recording and producing commercials for radio that promoted issues for local communities. So there might have been healthy eating campaigns, food safety campaigns, keep fit campaigns, all kinds of various different themes, and volunteers were engaged in producing commercial radio advertising, but with a community benefit and a community theme. In a backup service to that, we had a telephone service. So all the listeners from the radio stations that wanted further advice or information about the particular issue that was being broadcast, they would call in to our centre, and we would be able to offer further advice and send out information to back up that campaign. Okay, so we had volunteers manning the telephone lines. Occasionally we did this on legal issues, poverty issues, bullying issues, gender issues, sexuality, all kinds of different thematic campaigns. And that was produced regionally in Manchester, Liverpool, Cheshire, right across sort of the whole chunk of the northwest of England. Okay, that progressed again, that evolved further. EMAP, which was the organisation that owns the commercial radio stations, decided that it was of better commercial, financial value to them if they delivered that service in-house themselves. Okay, So rather than funding our volunteers and our projects, they decided that they would sort of keep it in-house and maybe get their own staff to produce the campaigns and charge, whereas we were doing the service for free, EMAP decided it would be better for them to charge charities for the airtime that they were given to the campaign. So a bit of an odd move for them, not a very good publicity move either. Recognising what happened, the BBC sort of nationally recognised a problem in that EMAP withdrew their social action broadcasting. CSV was offering this amazing service, so the BBC bought into it. Okay, so what happens then was we ended up with a volunteer coordinator in every BBC radio station across the United Kingdom, and they recruited volunteers and produced exactly the same service and repeated it throughout the BBC. Okay, so we have what we call an action desk producer based in each of the local BBC radio stations, coordinating volunteers in producing campaigns to raise awareness about social or sensitive political issues. Okay, from that, we had an advertising campaign to try and promote youth volunteering for 16 to 24-year-olds. This was a government-funded campaign. It was called Millennium Volunteers. So they launched in the year 2000, hence the title Millennium. Off the back of this huge advertising campaign for youth engagement, 16 to 24-year-olds, there was a huge... The way the advertising campaign ran, it publicised young people sort of attending DJ workshops and music workshops. But of course, and that was produced nationally, this advertising campaign, the only organisation that we were aware of at the time that actually offered volunteer opportunities for young people to participate in media activities was ourselves. So we ended up with this huge glut of young people wanting to do media-themed volunteering, and not very many places to place them. So we set up across Manchester, Liverpool, Preston. This is where I come in. I set up various projects in these areas to produce small films, short advertisements for local charities, other local charities, small community groups that might not necessarily have had the financing or the skills to produce their own sort of publicity materials. So we offered a free service to charities and community organisations in the North West region, but of course they all bit our hands off and bought into the service massively. Off the back of that, it was we managed to get a lot of corporate work from local councils. Local councils and regional councils recognised the good work that our volunteers were doing, and they also identified that the quality of the work that we were producing was of a broadcast standard. So they started to buy into our services. So we had sort of a small commercial aspect of what was going on. And that allowed us, or essentially that was them paying us to produce corporate materials for local government. Okay, obviously that was produced by volunteers, and the monies that we obtained from that were invested in the centre that we have today. So the centre that we have in Preston is a place where young people can attend to engage positively and contribute to their communities positively. Okay. Also what happened along with this process is education facilities recognised the good work that was going on. I've missed out a key piece of information here. One, we surveyed our volunteers, as I'm sure all organisations here continuously consult their volunteers on how they feel that their projects are going. It's a key part of how we work. we involve all our volunteers in how we deliver our projects. So we're continuously consulting. And sort of around 2005, it became apparent, and quite a trend, for young volunteers to ask for accreditation, formal accreditation in the work that they do. So they're not just volunteering sort of for the good of the community or just for themselves, to give themselves something to do. They actually want a qualification out of the work that they're doing. So fortunately, we had a few people, myself including, that at the teacher training we could go to the examining bodies in the UK and get the centre registered to enable us to formally accredit all our volunteers and young people. So yeah, we started to get them qualifications. So everything they did in producing the TV shows, I'll come back to that in a second, in producing the work that they did for the communities, they got an accreditation for. Okay, so essentially where we're at now, how we've evolved, we now have a small TV studio, we have professional sound, music recording studios, creative crafts department, and a publishing department. Okay, so how that works is every quarter, so every 3 months, we have a different theme. Whatever is sort of current with the young people, they vote, they nominate what the subject matter is going to be, the theme. So every quarter we have a different theme that the young people have recognised that needs to be aired, needs to be discussed, it needs to be researched, it needs to be promoted amongst the community. So it might, again, it might be currently, right now, the current theme of production is sexual health and relationships. So they recognise that there is a need for this issue to be discussed and sort of made or education DVDs made about this. So that's the current theme of production. So we will produce a documentary, and at the end of the production period, which is normally 6 to 8 weeks, we will have a TV show. In the TV studio, we'll invite sort of all guests and project partners. Alongside of that, all the music that's involved within the actual production process is produced by the young people and the volunteers themselves. All the merchandising and publicity materials for that show is also sort of created by the volunteers, and there you can see some samples. The whole process, from start to finish, okay, initially starts off with, of course, I have mentioned our target group is 14 to 19-year-old disaffected, disengaged and disenfranchised young people. So how do we engage them in such a technical process as media production? Quite simply, we enthuse them with the actual workshop materials. So, okay, there was a statement that our former leader of CSV once came out with when addressing Parliament in an active citizenship speech, and she said, young people will never engage in volunteering per se until you sex it up and make it look like a pair of Nike trainers. Okay, so in essence that's what we've done. We've disguised sort of what might be traditional volunteering in active citizenship as sort of youth, technical youth engagement. So initially we sort of try and enthuse young people through DJ workshops, music workshops, video production workshops. Through that process, then they become educated, they get their accreditations, therefore they are empowered, and they become more involved with the projects, and therefore then they become engaged within the process. We've got a work in progress that I would like to show you. If I can just come to this small video clip. Bearing in mind again our target group, and I will come back to you before I finish my presentation. When watching this, just bear in mind the target group that we're working with, dialogue is missing, apparently, I don't know why. Can I just start this film again? I'm in a different... That's a bit of a technical... do beg your pardon. There should have been some dialogue running through that clip then. I'm just going to try and run it through a different media play. Please back. Maybe not. It's close. Is there another media player available? Media player classic, do you think? Normally VLC is the stronger player and will play any format. Yeah, it's playing the film, but unfortunately it's not. There is a dialogue that runs through the documentary, and for some reason it's missing the dialogue. Yeah, it sort of drops that part of the audience. What I'm going to do, I'll just let the clip run, and I'll skip through it. For some reason the dialogue isn't. Essentially what the dialogue is saying right at this moment in time, if I can remember rightly, is that we have a young lady and she's actually explaining this is an area of Preston, a part of the northwest of England. This is where I grew up. Obviously this is old archive footage from the 60s. She's talking now about the facilities that are available in Preston as a city. And then she starts to talk about how industry expanded in Preston over the years. And then she goes on to talk about this event that takes place in Preston every 20-something years. It's called the Preston Guild. I believe that the UK is the only country that actually celebrates a guild event. It's a status awarded by who at the time was the king, gave to Preston, and all businesses get together and recognise the good work of their employees and offer a big celebration. So that was the previous guild. We've just had a Preston Guild, and now we sort of go on to recognise how the Polish community in Preston became involved with the guild. And that really is the thrust of where this documentary goes from now on. It talks about how Preston became a multicultural city, and at this moment specifically starts to talk about the Polish communities. So this was the first year, I think, back in the 70s when the Polish community became involved with the guild celebrations. document, I'm going to cut this short now. The documentary goes on. Oh, we have dialogue now for some reason. How bizarre, technology and its wonders. Okay, so these are obviously a different generation of Polish people, maybe third or fourth.
My father, who was in an army. My family, my mother, 2 sisters, and myself. We came here to join him and was forgotten.
Okay, they're talking about sort of how the community became established. Okay, I'll stop that there. So that there is a super, I think, for me personally, it's a superb example of how disaffected, disengaged young people can sort of become actively involved and play a positive part in their community in quite a diverse and unusual way, particularly for that client group. For them to be able to recognise and understand why we have a diverse community and why we have immigrants in our countries is essential, and they will therefore hopefully go on to have a different opinion, a more positive opinion on why we do have multicultural societies. There endeth my draw. Okay, thank you for listening.